start with the news that broke last night about Corey Evans' contract.
Yeah.
The club obviously delighted to have offered him on. What's your take on that?
I think it's the right thing to do. He's obviously got a serious injury, and having known Corey for the last 5 years at Blackburn Rovers, I think I know the human being, know what he brings to the football club. I didn't see him here for a year and a half or so, but he obviously led the team and was instrumental in the promotion out of League One, and so I think it's the right thing to do. I think I know how important he is in our dressing room, and I think the respect he's got from the rest of the players, and I think for the rest of the players and for Corey, the right thing to do was to, especially in the moment he's in at the moment with his injury situation, was to give him peace of mind and make sure that he knows the club is there to support him through this period.
And the club statement, as you mentioned, though, is still important in the dressing room. Can you just give us a bit of an insight into what he's giving the players at the moment, even though he's not on the pitch?
Well, the football dressing room is like, I've always called it, like it's a living organism, really. It lives and it breathes, and people do things that are wrong and people do things that are right. People, especially new people who come in and don't know the standards that are set and what you have to do and how you have to live, and what's acceptable, what the boundaries are of being a footballer for this club. And somebody needs to administer them, really. And so as a head coach, I don't live in their dressing room. I don't sit in there and with my watch and keeping time and making sure everybody's in and people they're doing this or they're not doing that. So that's why you know that old football saying, you're only as good as your senior pros. It's Corey Evans is the guy who runs that dressing room and makes sure that people adhere to the standards that the club demand and the dressing room and the players demand. So you know, himself, Danny Bath, this type of footballers are so important at any football club. We've talked a lot about how young the team is and how you know, the benefits and the negatives of having such a young team, really. But it's really important that they've got people who lead them and set the standards, and Corey fits into all of that, really.
After you talked about it being a learning curve. You know, after the players have digested that, do you think that they've learned some lessons from that game?
I think the season's a learning curve for us, really. I think, you know, a lot of these lads haven't played in this level of football or this league before, and there's so many. I've talked about the diversity of the division, of different ways that teams play. Some total football teams who are very good with the ball, and some teams who get it in your box at every opportunity, and some teams who are really aggressive and play high press, and some teams who play counter attack. It's, you know, from Bristol City, who were really mobile but breaking on you, playing counter attack football, to Rotherham, who hit the most long balls in the division. It's a learning curve, and so when I'm talking about learning curves, it's just each game becomes different and how you have to adapt your game, and then you've got to try and impose your own game on the opposition. And I felt a little bit as if, and a lot of teams do, and you know, the report of the Rotherham's previous game was you can get sucked into competing with them too much and forgetting to play a little bit, and you know, sort of not imposing your own style on the opposition sometimes is a learning curve. And I think as the game grew, we got more and more on top of the game, played our own game. You know, the last half an hour was very much one-way traffic, and yet we couldn't find a way to get back into the game as much as we could have wanted to. But yeah, that's all right. As I've talked this season about, there's no pressure on us winning every game. It's we're going to have ups and downs as we go along this journey, and what's interesting now is see whether we can bounce back at the weekend. You know, another tough away game against a totally different football team. You know, Coventry City are a football team who like to play with the ball, and Matt Robbins is a very good coach who has a system and style of play, and you've got to be ready for it, and they will give us problems. They've got probably the league's most or one of the league's most potent centre forwards playing for them, and yeah, so it's a tough game. I've obviously been to Coventry. I've managed at Coventry. It's an amazing stadium and arena, and the fans are very passionate about their football club, and so it'll be on TV in the morning, early kick-off. It'll be a good game, I'm sure.
And I know you won't want to pay too much attention to the table, but it's still so tight. I mean, I know there are a few places behind, but only 4 points. And you know, it's that thing of where you don't want one defeat to become 2, when you kind of slip a little bit further down, or you bounce back and all of a sudden you're back in those playoff places. I mean, how much does that table and that motivation of being in playoff places, how much does that affect the players?
That's not something we talk about, to be honest. I think we only just focus on the next game. I do believe that we will probably go up and down over the next however many's left, 13 or 14 games, or we potentially can lose 2 or 3 games, and then we can potentially win 2 or 3 games, and we'll go down and think, oh God, we've dropped to mid-table, win 2 on the bounce and you're back in the top 6. So that's the league we're in. So I think the real positive is, that we're not scrambling around at the bottom thinking, God, if we lose we drop into the bottom 3. We've found a level of consistency so far that has allowed us to pick up points. We've got to try and aim to continue that over the remainder of the season and see where it takes us, but without the pressure of, oh, we must win. In my mind, we must go and try and play well and impose ourselves on the opposition, and we can still play well and find a team on a really hot day, and their strikers take the few chances they get and we lose. It's or we can go and play a little bit below par and still score 3 goals. So last week was a bit of that. I bump into people who tell me how amazing we were at QPR, and yet for the first 30 minutes we didn't get a kick at QPR away. We were totally on the back foot, and yet we end up winning 3-0. And so stick it on the other side of the coin, and if people are going to say, God, it was poor at Rotherham, well, the last half hour Rotherham was really good, everything we want from our team, but I think it's football, it's the nature. The result seems to dictate everything. You were either great or you were terrible, and generally reality is you were somewhere in between, and that's why as a coach you try to look at the team and think, what was good, what do we need to improve on, where have we got to get better, and that's where I sit really. There was some good stuff at Rotherham, but we had to get up to the intensity levels earlier in the game, knowing what was coming, and we talked about that, and we didn't quite manage to get there, but and that might have been because it was the 7th game in 20 odd days. It might have been, or it might have been the fact I decided to play 2 up top and give up a little bit of possession to try and get them off our back with their high press. So whichever it was, it's a learning curve for us, and the next game is just around the corner, and we'll try and go to Coventry and give them a tough game.
Are there any injury updates?
Yes, but not that I'm going to tell you about. I don't think anything new positively that's coming back, and how exciting that he's back playing. We've just got a few that are just carrying a few knocks and a few niggles and a few issues, so but that seems to be the same most weeks, and what I do know is we'll put hopefully a competitive team out at the weekend and go to Coventry and try and get 3 points.
And just finally for me, just broadly, your opinion, the government's wants to introduce a new independent regulator for English football, and among the several main points are things like protecting historic clubs from going bust, making sure more money trickles down from the Premier League to the EFL and below. Broadly speaking, are you supportive of an independent regulator, or what, how do you think things can improve?
I listened to the West Ham chairman on the way in to training today. Has he got some valid points? Maybe. Depends how your mind feels. Listen, I think the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating, isn't it? And let's see how much they interfere. Let's see how much voice they want, how much they want to influence English football. Because the argument of the West Ham chairman was that a government that doesn't seem to be getting everything right in its management of the country is now going to take a strong hand on English football, which is, the Premier League is reputedly the best in the world, and it does filter money down to grassroots and to the lower leagues, and who's going to decide who a good owner is or not a good owner is, and all of that stuff. Let's wait and see. I can't sit here and say, God, what a terrible idea or what a brilliant idea. Let's wait and see, and we can pontificate, if that's the right word, about it as it gets underway, and see what happens.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Tony, start with Joe Gallagher. Obviously, did you see a weight off his shoulders when he came in, having got that first goal?
No, because we didn't win the game. I think we were all frustrated. Really, we didn't get the result we wanted to get. But listen, as I said, I don't judge Joe on his goals. I judge Joe on his performance level and his work rate, and he is working extremely hard. I do see him. We watch training back every day, and I see how hard he works in training, making double movements, double runs, always running in behind. I sat and watched Man City last night and watched Haaland play up front, and he had with his 9 touches in the game, and it's unless you score, it's a bit like I said earlier on. If you win, everything's great. If you lose, you were terrible. And it's probably the same with strikers. If you score, wow, what a player. If you don't score, he only had 9 touches. Centre forwards, they get all the glory when you're winning and he's scoring and the team's doing well, and he's fantastic. And what I'm interested in is how hard he works and how hard he's trying to develop his game, and how much conversation he wants with the coaching staff regarding, could he have made a better run here, should he have done this better. He's fine, we're happy with him. My only concern is that he's the only one we've got, and he's a young boy who's never played so much football in his time, and we are dependent on him every game. He has got to put his boots on, try and stay fit, and hopefully score goals as well, and enjoy his period of time here.
You mentioned the tactical gear shift between playing Rotherham on a Tuesday and playing Coventry on a Saturday. In practical terms, how much information is that for the players to take in? Is it like an info-heavy week for them to have to jump between one stand and the other?
It has been, and I've just said to the staff, that's why I was 5 minutes late. We were in staff meeting talking about the remainder of the week. We are going to tone it down, less information really. Let's go and just enjoy playing football today. Let's just do some basic generic football sessions where they can have a smile on their face and enjoy it, and take out the information overload of the next team. Let's be good at what we do. Let's go and play our game at the weekend, and let them worry about us a little bit, as opposed to giving lots of information on the next opposition.
I suppose on a similar note as well, unless you Burnley or like the Fulham last year or something in the Championship, you tend to have to roll with the punches. Do you think is that easy for a young team to do? Or is that something that you have to learn to sort of be able to shrug off the odd setback?
Well, again, it comes down to football as an industry is about human beings, about people. You've got within a 20-odd footballers. Some do it much easier than others. Some doesn't affect them. You can feel it. Sometimes you want to see the upset footballer after a game because they're frustrated and disappointed, and some players don't give you that. Some of them seem to be able to shrug it off pretty quickly, and some it does affect quite a lot. So that's the game we're in. That's why ultimately, within the next hour or so, they'll have the boots on, they'll be on the grass, you're getting ready for the next game, and so you play that one. You try and break it down if you have time. The problem we've had over the last month or so is that there's been no debriefs of games really, because the next day you're in recovering and preparing for the game after a few days later, and so we've had very little time to debrief what's good, what's bad, what we should do better. The positive for me is after Saturday to the end of the season, we're almost, apart from Easter, we're almost on a week-to-week basis, and we'll be able to do a lot more work throughout the week with the team, and hopefully get the rewards of that. But obviously there's no guarantee, because if you're playing every 3 days and it's going quite well and the team functioning, they just keep rolling on. But sometimes in football you can do lots and lots of work building up to a Saturday, and as you say, you have to get the balance between information overload really, and we're just trying to create an identity of a football team, and so we focus very much on ourselves, but you have to give them information because of the diversity of the league we're in about what's coming and what the next team is. Because if you picture young footballers, they don't go home and watch the next opposition we're playing. They finish a game, they go home to their families or to their girlfriends, and they come in training and they probably don't even know who's next. So our job is to show them what they do, where they play, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. And when it's the games tomorrow and they've just finished a game and you've got one day to prepare them for the next team, it can feel a little bit like overload. So you have to get the balance between how much info on the next opposition and let's just focus on us and play how we play, and when the game starts let's worry about what they're doing. There's a balance to be had, and we're trying to get that right. It just feels like an overload of literally, as I said, 8 games every 3 days. It just keeps coming. I think we're all looking forward to playing Coventry and then having like a debrief really of these games, and then we can focus like what will feel like proper preparation to the next game. And I say that in total respect that we aren't the only team that are playing every 3 days. Everybody's been playing. If you're Man City, they're playing Champions League, and I heard Guardiola saying last night it's because the narrative is that it was a poor result for Man City, and yet Leipzig beat Real Madrid not long ago, and they're sitting only 4 points off Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga. When is it a good result? When is it not a good result? His players, when he doesn't make a substitution in a Champions League match, well, we all know our team, we all know our players. I sit here with my staff this morning, I seem to be making 5 substitutions every game, and I'm very conscious of making substitutions because I look at the team, and we do base a lot of our stuff off energy really, and intensity, and when them levels drop you need to replenish it. So yeah, I think we're in an alright place. It's going to be interesting for me to see. I said after the game, it was our first away defeat since October, and let's see how we react at the weekend. Hopefully it's a positive reaction, and we don't like the feeling of defeat, and we will find a way to get a positive result.
To go back to the start, with that sort of idea of bouncing back, is that an area where having someone like Corrie about the place, even if he's not able to actually get out on the grass, could be useful?
Yeah, listen, I don't live in their dressing room. I've always said that. I go in when I have to go in, of course, but I'm sure them conversations will be had around the pool table, in the showers. These are footballers, they talk. They'll be lifting themselves now, I'm pretty sure. The dynamics of this dressing room, there's a few young French-speaking kids there. There's some older players. There's a lot of young players. The dynamics of it is interesting, and I think Corey Evans, Danny Bath, these type of players are really, really important. That they make sure that everybody knows where they should be at. Everybody knows that we have to stay positive and refocus, and that's, in my mind, it's not their job, but it's what they do and what they bring, because they're positive guys.